Evening, welcome. It is November 28th, 2023, 6 o'clock for the Selectmen's meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order and a roll call, please.
Teresa Moss present.
Joseph Shank, present.
Jess Sexton Duranian present. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as usual, thank all those in service, past and present, and first responders. We appreciate your service. This meeting will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube. 1.4, Chairman's additions and deletions. I do have an addition under 3.3, which is an appointment to the Cemetery and Parks. And 1.5, review and approve the meeting minutes. So I'll entertain a motion to approve minutes for 11/14/2023.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No.
None of my point.
Okay. Everything is fine with me, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I would like to, at this point, take 4.1 out of order. And we will look at review and approve the Department of Justice Grant Award for the Police Department. Chief Seitel.
Sure, I appreciate that. That was quick.
Gotta get you in and out.
Very good. Thank you very much. Much appreciated, much appreciated.
I know you're busy.
Well, I'm sure I'm busier than the people sitting at the desk. I'll take it though. So yes, we were awarded a Department of Justice grant of $106,000 for the purposes of community-oriented policing and supporting getting accredited, state level accreditation. The title of the grant is supporting law enforcement agencies on seeking a state level accreditation. Largely, the funds that were acquired are for the purposes of an accreditation manager, a temporary position or a consultation or something along those lines, around $65,000. Another $30,000 for development of policies and protocols and those types of things. Some accreditation software, associated fees, some equipment, computer printers, some office supplies and those things. The total is $106,000. It's a fairly aggressive timeline. They awarded the grant a little later than they had planned. Tell me if you've heard that before. The period of time that they're looking to finish it up by is September 30th of 2025. I think it's doable. I do think it's tight. I'll reach out to the person as soon as you folks, or if you folks are inclined to approve the grant and accept it, I'll reach out to our grant administrator at the DOJ and figure out how firm that timeline is and see if I can get them to jog it a little bit due to the fact that they did award it fairly late. We have a plan in place, or a plan ready to put in place anytime relative to tracking down how this accreditation manager position will work, whether or not we'll do a per diem thing, whether or not we'll hire a temporary employee. We've got a bunch of different things to kind of track down and figure out the pros and cons for those things. I think it's something that I've planned on doing since I've come to work here 5 or 6 years ago. A lot of what I applied for the grant last May, we were well on the way to doing a lot of the things that this grant would do anyway. So in many ways, we're ahead of where I thought we would be. So we may be able to get more out of this grant than I had originally thought, just in terms of establishing some best practices there. I think it's a good, I think there are no strings attached to the grant other than the ongoing costs of accreditation, which are minimal. They are the cost of doing business. They're already incorporated in our budget. We do belong to the Mass Accreditation Commission as it stands now. It is something we work into our annual budget anyway. There are residual costs whenever they tinker with accreditation standards, but that goes with the business. I mean, if the court decides they're going to put a mandate on us, we have to kind of ebb and flow with those things anyways. Any policies that we have adopted since I have been here, we've done with an eye toward accreditation. So I do think we're a little farther down. I think the office help and the administrative lift here will be helpful to get us across the finish line. Again, I do think it's an aggressive timeline, but I still do think it is doable.
So what's the timeline? What are there?
Immediately, the budget started immediately upon acceptance and through September 30th of 2025.
Okay.
A little bit less than 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, how is that gonna fit in with the WAN that we're planning as well? And the, solar panels, all of that?
Yeah, in fact, I spoke with that, about this very issue with the capital planning committee before this meeting, where this is one of the two big projects we would have going in 2020, fiscal 25. We also have, where we are actually purchasing new firearms too. So we've got enough projects in the pipeline to keep us busy. So we throttled back a little bit on some of our capital planning plans and pushed those out towards the end of that 5-year plan to kind of account for that. But again, I do think it is aggressive timeline, no question about it. Will be all hands on deck, particularly considering we are hiring as well. But I do think it's doable. I think we have the staff to do it. I think this is the right group of people to do it as well. I think it's a good board to do it with. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity if you're so inclined to accept it.
Well, as our former state rep used to say, you don't leave any money on the table. So I agree with wanting to be able to move forward with this. When they give it to you, you're gonna take it and run with it. You guys have any questions?
We talked about it a little bit.
No, Chief and I, at that meeting, we just talked about it, it's here. I was gonna talk about it, but I think it's a great thing. I think PD's moving forward in the right direction. I think we need to keep going. Take any money we can to help subsidize what Chief needs to get done.
Yeah, I think the grant was written in such a way where it will subsidize what we already do in a way as well. That we are, a lot of the software that we will be purchasing or we will be paying users fees for, we would be inclined to buy anyways. I've always sold accreditation this way. I think it's the way to do business anyway. So anything you do in furtherance of it, I think is money well spent because it's something you want to keep going. The legacy here is to put something in place that ebbs and flows with society's changes in this line of work. And I think that goes a great deal towards doing just
I think
that.
so too. And the fact that we can provide you with more redundancy too in regards to a lot of your, the computer backup, I think that's equally as important as well. So I'm good with this. You guys wanna, do we formally
Be a
vote?
motion
or-
to accept and approve the DOJ grant for the police department.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and seconded. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Much appreciated. From a logistical standpoint, we've already gotten these things are all done through portals, like we need another portal, but they're all done through portals, and I think everything is okay. I mean, I don't believe I'll need any physical signatures, but if I do, I'll work through Mr. Slagle to take care of that. But I think we're good, be able to approve it through now that I've got the authority to do that. I think I can approve and accept the grant through the portal. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right,
Very good,
thank you,
Chief.
sir.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
And while the chief is here, 4.2 probably is a discussion for him as well.
Okay, so we'll jump to 4.2, discuss and approve potential expansion of PRECC to include Groton and Dunstable.
Yeah, so I can give a relatively brief overview. This came up on my radar a few weeks ago. I know there's been internal discussions about it for a little bit longer than that, but I was in a meeting with all of the town administrators and town managers of all 5 municipalities a couple of weeks ago, with the exception of Mike Bussell, who's the fire chief in Ashby, who is still the acting town administrator in Ashby, poor guy, to meet and discuss the proposal on the table, which would be to have Groton Dunstable, who has their own regional dispatch between the 2 towns, dissolve their regional dispatch and join Patriot. So we'd move from 3 to 5. The upside is the increased budget would allow funding for more dispatchers. So there would be more dispatch capability to cover all of the towns. Obviously, it would be needed for all the towns, but it does provide redundancy for a large scale event in any particular town. We'd have multiple dispatchers and able to call on aid and dispatch crews to a large scale incident. where we don't have that same level of redundancy now, given that it's only the 3 towns. Financially, the initial estimates would be it might save Townsend a small amount of money, in the $10,000 or $15,000 range. So it's not going to be a financial windfall for us, but it would be a service. And my understanding is, based on conversations with Dave Stairs, who runs the PRAC, it would be an increase in the level of service that we could get because of the redundancy. This is the way, my understanding, and the chief might be able to speak better on this, but this is the way that the state is pushing people to go, is to dissolve the smaller. Now that they've pushed everybody to go regional, now they want to dissolve the smaller regionals and have them join larger regionals. I did express my concerns that we not run into kind of the issues that we had with Neshoba. And I think everybody in the room kind of knew what those issues were with kind of our challenges with Neshoba, and they're not being able to handle the volume of stuff that they were doing, and not being set up in a way that they were expanding in a rational and thoughtful manner. We were also kind of a little appendage on Neshoba, whereas here we'd be more in the middle of things geographically. But I'll let the chief, I know you guys have met on the more logistical side of it. And so I know that he probably has some thoughts.
Sure. One, I think that when you review the feasibility studies to move away from Neshoba, I think this model was discussed. And I do think that any feasibility studies I've read, whether or not be Groton's that they had done recently, or one that about that area recently, or the one that we had done for our initial move from Neshoba, I think this is consistent with what they were saying was a best practice. There is a move amongst the state 911, 911 to consolidate PSAPs, public safety access points. I don't know where that stops. You're starting to see agencies much larger than our district, and certainly much larger than our town, that are being asked to consolidate. Towns of 40 and 50,000 people even. Even Lowell has been approached to see if they will take towns on or do something about it.
I was in the middle of one when they tried to do
Right.
it when I was there, and they said.
So clearly their desire is, and there is a best practice, there is a ratio out there, a certain amount of population size to a public safety access point. I don't know what that number is, but I do know the Commonwealth had way more than they wanted to do, than they wanted to maintain. That is happening in our business. So I think it is one of those you manage to change, or the change manages you situations. I really do. The pros, I think we're better off to get grants to both run the center and to help with capital expenses in the way of incentives and development grants. I think having a larger regional communication center allows you to get that. We had a meeting with 911 here at our local level with our board of selectmen, with our state reps, with our state senators, with the department heads. And 911, even when put on under the spotlight, would not explain how they figured out how they gave those grants out. It would not go on record with how those development grants go out, or incentive development grants go out, and how they figure how much they would be. So conceivably, doing what they ask and consolidating and building these regional centers would give you better access to these grants. Thus, our assessment would certainly be better that way. Having more personnel, Mr. Slagle had mentioned that is a significant issue when it comes to mutual aid, when it comes to large scale emergencies. We're also now able to tap into that regional planning center, where we are just Montechusett regional planning now being in that rec would allow us to have that resources as well. So there are some things that bigger agency does provide us. Our assessment dips short term, but like I've said, since I've been asked about dispatch in general, I would not look at any of these as cost saving measures. I think you look at quality, and things that are good quality cost good money. I do think you'd see a temporary reduction, but I do think in the long term of things, we're about half of what we would be paying if we had our own dispatch center. And if you figured that out and you looked back, and I looked at our last few years of our functioning dispatch center, and I added inflation to that figure, and we're still right about there. You're always going to be about half of what you were. Very rough math, but it does give you some level of bearing. So I do think our assessment would, at the very least, stabilize. It is not stable. The last 3 years, it has gone up significantly. We knew that, we planned for that, we discussed that in all types of different meetings. This would stabilize that line, I feel, at least in the near term. The cost of the center divided by 7, the cost of the center divided by 4. It's not a rocket science to figure that piece out. Access to state level software systems, sharing the same records management system and things like that also does have an impact on our assessment. It sounds silly, but in 2023, a significant amount of our budget at that comm level is software associated fees. That's a significant thing. That would certainly be stabilized and strengthen numbers and economy of scale type of stuff with that. It does improve our coverage. Being in the middle, like Mr. Slagle had said, does make it so that providing good radio coverage to the town of Ashby certainly gets us right smack dab in the middle of it, so it works well for us.
Yeah.
The cons, and we are on top of it, we'll do what we can to mitigate these cons that I'm about to list, but I think they're fair game to discuss because I do think they are there. One is this is a serious growth of an organization. To double in size overnight in this economy, in this labor market, in that line of work is very, very difficult and it's very aggressive. I've spoken about this, Mr. Slagle may have heard me talk about this before. We are on top of it. We're bringing it up at our board of directors meetings or however that is. Captain Grimley, fire chief, and I are on that committee. We have made that clear that we intend to make sure that quality control is part of this growth. Do you get too big too fast? I'm not sure how we avoid it. If we add a town of that size, meaning Groton, with another little town like Ashby and in Dunstable, and add those two at the same time, to think you're not going to have to add staff is a fool's game. So we know it's going to have to grow. There is a loss of control a little bit. When you look at our memorandum of understanding with this entity that we've created, we are now bringing more people to the table. Ergo, we know how politics work. There are strength in numbers. We do lose a little control. I say that at the same time, I say that these are good men to deal with. I know them. I have worked with them in other projects. I don't have any confidence issues that we would be able to work as a team to improve the center. And it is merely rebuilding something is different than running something. And when we're in those rebuilding stages, I do think it's going to be a tap on us all. And I'm hoping that the department heads will feel the same way I do, that we need to put in the work early because the foundation makes a big difference as to how this thing runs long term. But I do feel as though that is something worth noting is the loss of control from a local perspective. And then there's the infrastructure and capital issues that I worry about a little bit. An entity like this is the town of Pepperell that we're talking about. They are the backbone of this. They're the ones that are providing us the employees. They're the ones that are providing benefits to these employees. As of right now, where the building is theirs, any capital made, there's going to have to be some understanding that it cannot be totally equal. These 7 or 8 entities, I can't remember how many we're talking about. If you think about, they're in varying degrees of effectiveness, varying degrees of technology. To get them all on the same place and have that equity that we need, we are going to have to subsidize some of these towns, and we may be the benefactors of that. We may be the one subsidized, but there is no way we all walk into this marriage with the same level of assets and the same level of technology. And that is something that we would need to work out at that level. I worry a little bit about the capital because, again, we're dealing with a municipal entity, not a private company. Right. However, I think those issues have been identified, and there's a few others. I'd be more than happy to speak with any of you offline if you would like to, that are also on our radar about the dangers of this as it's coming together, things we have heard from our colleagues about putting it together. But I'm confident in the people involved. I'm confident in the funding that seems to be there as far as how at least kicking it off looks. And quite frankly, I'm not so sure we have much of a choice in the long term anyway. I have watched as some of the agencies around the Commonwealth have said no, and then 2 or 3 years later have decided they had to, and they got much less of a deal from 911. Good friend of mine is the chief of police in Wenham, Massachusetts. They have not paid an assessment in a couple of years, and they're not paying for another 3 years. There are some advantages to growing like this and doing it when they're asking you to, and not at the tip of a spear. So I'm not so sure we have all that control anyways, to be very frank about that. But I do have a significant amount of work, in this issue. We continue to put that higher on our priority list. Chief Shepherd and I talk about it relatively frequently, and it certainly would be a significant thing moving forward.
I wanted to add one other pro that was brought up at our meeting, which is a part of this expansion involves the hiring of specific computer tech for the RAC and the associated public safety entities. So I know that both police and fire have their own IT services, but this would allow potentially some future either savings or consolidation, or just taking something off the plate of our current IT rep and have the PREC have a computer person being able to do work in our cruisers and in our stations that the PREC tech is doing on their time that would, potentially save us some.
Right, even as of now, even with the current memorandum of understanding we have with our IT person, we do end up having to spend extra hours whenever there is a project done. And all these agencies are all the time updates and, software updates and firmware updates. And we end up paying an hourly rate to our IT, whereas if the center had its own IT, that would go away.
So that's just another potential pro. I mean, I don't know that it's a big,
it's definitely
huge
$2,000 a year for sure. And not to mention aggravation and downtime. Putting a cost on those things, much like we talked about leasing vehicles. Downtime involves the cruisers aren't working, involves me sending guys to do jobs that that's not what they do. They don't drive cars back and forth. They're not taxi drivers. Same thing with these computers when they go down. So there would be at the very least an efficiency savings or efficiency increase for sure, and probably some sort of a monetary reduction.
I just wanted to mention, I didn't need to step on it, but I wanted to mention that as a possibility.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, first of all, I sat in a meeting that they just had last week, and I was invited to sit in as the public safety officer. And as Chief has said, he's hit a lot of the keynotes. One of the biggest questions I had when I was asked was, how do we do this and not get into the same dilemma we had that we did when we jumped into Neshoba? Neshoba came here, we were all involved, we were all seeing it. They made all kinds of promises, everything's gonna run smooth, everything. But I was asked directly by Mr. Steers, my opinion of what I've seen from Neshoba to what they've done. And I can honestly say from the day that they started Pepperell, everything that was said and talked about and promised has been done. They've really held strong to making sure all the towns are handled. They agree that there may be some growing pains. But one other thing, when we were originally going into Neshoba, we had to go under their MOA. And this is what you're gonna do. Well, I think their board voted that if they're gonna go and reach out to Dunstable and Groton, this is what we have. Do you wanna come? So I think it will help a little bit to not muddy the waters. Now we got two more towns, they want this separate than that. So I think what the chiefs and everybody's done from what I've seen, and I think it's a great thing. I think we're gonna get forced into it anyway, just a matter of time. As Chief mentioned, maybe if we jump on now, maybe we get a little more ahead of the state and make it work. That's my opinion.
Teresa?
Yeah, I'm good with what he's presented.
Okay. I'm gonna ask a question that I'm sure the townspeople will be asking. How is this going to affect somebody on such and such a street picking up the phone calling 911?
The goal is not affect them. And the goal is to not affect them at all in the negative, certainly, and if any effect, then it to be in the positive. One of the things that was very interesting about last year's annual report, and I got my email this weekend, Eric, and I'll be on top of it. Submitting my annual report was, I actually got completed my first draft and did not include the fact that we had gone to a completely new dispatch center. As I was putting together my yearly report, it was such a non-issue to me that it didn't even spring to my mind as I was writing the words.
Yeah.
And that really signaled to me that it had been done in a way that it should have been done. I hear compliments all the time. Again, I'm a manager. You paid me to look at these issues and throw quality control initiatives at processes. And I I think that there can be some improvements done at that center, even as it stands that way. I have my role on the directors board, and I will continue to push that to make sure that these dispatchers are audited frequently, to listen to their phone calls, to listen to the way that they do their business, to see how they are cataloging things and whether or not they are meeting the demands of their job in the way that we have set it out. I think the MOA is strong. I think the leadership teams are in place so as to not replicate some of the issues that were done with the move to Neshoba. So my goal is none, or if any, a positive one. I think there have been improvements in that regard relative to phone systems and phone numbers, and Captain Grimley and I are working on that relatively routinely to make that easy for the customer or the consumer. So my goal is none, and we will try and strive to do that. We have a robust complaint processing system. I think in the entire time, if I was to just use my memory, I think I've had one complaint this entire year about dispatch personnel was forwarded to them. I believe it was not even sustained. So it's not a regular thing that we're having difficulty. They are the face of our agency. They are the first point of contact. It's important that they maintain a customer service bearing. I will demand that as long as I have breath in my body. That said, it's on them to provide that quality control, and they are employees of the town of Pepperell. We have some say, and again, I go back to that local control piece. We have some say through our positions on the board, and the three of us are very like-minded when it comes to customer service type of issues. So we'll do our best to maintain that level of standard that our townspeople expect.
And I would just say one of the benefits of the way that this is being proposed is the existing systems that our town folks are already interacting with are likely to stay the same. It's Groton and Dunstable's residents who are likely to see any changes are going to be seen on their end as opposed to ours. This is not intended to be a melding of two. They are dissolving theirs and joining ours. So like the current setup, the current systems, the current, interface between Townsend and Townsend Police and Fire and the PREC is still going to stay the same.
Yeah, we've done some exciting stuff at the ground level as well with our phone systems and stuff. So the things we found early in the Neshoba experiment where, the phone systems weren't gelling together and people were going to extensions that didn't go in, all that stuff has been resolved. I can't even tell you the last time I've had a complaint of that nature. We have one merged phone system in the district, and it's my understanding Groton will join that phone system. So those little things should maintain and should not change. I think, will there be changes when we grow? Maybe, the economy scale does funny things, but the phone numbers that we use, who picks up the phone and transferring calls around the district, I think they'll stay the same, if not improve, in my opinion.
And we would see I haven't seen anything, and if there was problems with the system, we would be all well aware of what's going on because, just
they would let us know.
Quiet in
Yeah,
this town.
exactly, right. We would definitely do that. I just want to go on record by saying a couple of things, Chief, if you don't mind. Number one is that this transition that you've initiated, I appreciate everything that you've done for it. I think it's admirable, the amount of work that not only you, but your force has done in regards to getting that up and running, and I appreciate it. And I want you to know that. The second thing is that I have my reservations in regards to numbers are numbers, statistics are statistics, but there's major discrepancy in workforce numbers. It's very difficult, and I'm saying this as a person looking for staff myself. It is going to be very difficult to staff something like this. It's pretty much doubling the size of what we have right now. Having said that, and knowing that we have the way you've implemented the change to begin with, that is a foresight. I just want to throw that out there because I know that anybody on any street in this town is going to worry about picking up the phone and calling and having service to their house, especially with the fire and police.
Right, 100%. And people I love are in that group of people. So I hear where you're coming from. One thing I will say relative to the growth of the agency or of the entity is the plan is to bring Groton's dispatchers right along with them.
Good.
It's a functioning dispatch center. I listen to it frequently. The fire chief listens to it frequently. We do not have a lot of complaints. We've done mutual aid calls with them fairly regularly. We have some frequent flyers that hang around that Groton Pepperell, Townsend, Murky town line over there next to the high school. So we deal with them fairly often. The Groton Police Chief is a friend of mine as well, and I listen to their dispatch center, and I think it functions well. So incorporating those employees, it's not like they're in a death spiral where they don't have any staff and, they're bailing haywire and, all that. That's not the way that is. So I do think that there's a high probability that they will only have a few positions, which would be consistent with what you're seeing just generally as far as, just filling normal positions from attrition reasons.
Right.
So I don't think they're going to be going out there looking for 5 bodies. I think they're going to be going out there and just looking to staff their people. Training to do it the way Patriot does it as opposed to Groton. There's a learning curve there for sure, but it's not as bad as if they had to go out there and hire, 5 or 6 brand new dispatchers, right? So they're bringing on experienced people. One of the things I know I talk about it a lot, but it's very important, is the same software system that they will be taught on in Groton that they are in Groton is the same one that they're utilizing in Patriot. So the learning curve should be much more manageable due to the fact that they're on the same software.
So I would, I guess you're looking for an approval then.
Well, there are 2 ways that we could do this. We could, if the board wishes, you could have a motion to approve the increase of the PREC to accept Groton and Dunstable, subject to the vote of the board, to the PREC board.
Mhm.
Or we could put it on a future date to have that formal vote, but it's on here. We don't have the amended MOA yet, but it's not gonna change. It's gonna be the same MOA that we had. It's just gonna include Groton and Dunstable.
What would you guys like to do?
I'm ready to vote tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, give them the power. They discussed it at that meeting, that as long as Groton and Dunstable understand you're coming to them, this is the way it is, you sign on. The other towns, I think it's a smart thing to do. Get it moving before they tell us that we have to do something
Have to
different.
do so.
And
Well, I
then
agree with
the
that.
MOA will be brought before the board anyway. And
Yeah,
changes
that's-
to it, I'll make
that's-
sure
we have to sign it
I point out.
anyway.
I looked at it again last week and looked at it to see what I thought might change due to the size of it. I'm not so sure there's a need to really change anything other than that. The ratios can still be done. It looks like it's portable and very easy to plug those agencies in without changing fundamentally anything in the MOA. I will be sensitive to any changes. I'll be sure to report them to the board upon delivery.
Yeah, if anything is gonna cost us money, that's gonna be an issue, we need to know it.
Right.
We'll do that.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the potential expansion of PRECC to include Groton and Dunstable.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Chief. Have a good night.
All right, we'll go back up to 2.1, none.
Done.
Yeah.
Done and done.
3.1, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Autumn Buck as conservation agent to the land use department effective 11/28/23 with a start date of 12/4/23.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Looks like everything's all set here, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Welcome, Autumn. Good for Jessica, cracking the whip over there, I see.
No, we had a lot of very good candidates
Good.
that came in for this job, and I'm really excited about Autumn. I think she's gonna do a good job.
Well, there's a lot
Local. She local.
Yes, but I can't remember the town that she lives in right off the top of my head. But the ones we interviewed were people who were relatively local.
Well, we need to staff that up. We have needed to staff
Yes,
that up.
this is desperate. We really need to do that.
3.2, appoint Natalie Call as Council on Aging Board Member effective 11/28/23 with a term to expire June 30th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I made sure that I looked over this to make sure that everything was all in order, and it is in order. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3.3, this was added, I think this was also put in SharePoint. This is for Cemetery and Parks Department, at the Cemetery and Parks Department meeting of November 15th, 2023. The commissioners voted to recommend John James for part-time intermittent season laborer. His application is attached. Once be approved by the Board of Selectmen, please let the cemetery and parks know so that we can begin paperwork and orientation process. Everything has been submitted here, and I don't see any issues with it. So if we could, I will entertain a motion to appoint John James as part-time intermittent season laborer for the cemetery and parks department.
So moved.
Second.
I should put the, do I need to put the times? Effective November 5th? No,
After November
Today.
28th, 23.
November 28th. Okay. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome, John. We finished 4.0, so we'll jump down to work session, 5.0 opera projects. Do we have anything, Eric, on that?
No, we don't.
5.1 town administrator updates and reports.
Okay, so I do have a few updates. There are a couple of updates for things that will likely be brought in front of the board next week at our December 5th meeting. The first is, the board may recall there was a free speech issue that was raised about the flags at the city of Boston and about use of the flags, and if you use the flags for, if you let any entity that's not the government use the flagpole for their flags, you have to let anybody use the flagpole for their flags for free speech purposes. Well, recently there have been a spate of requests going around to all sorts of towns all over the Commonwealth with requests to use their flagpole to put up particular types of flags, citing to that Supreme Judicial Court case stating that it is a First Amendment issue. In response, many towns are looking to have adopted a flag policy that lays out the use of flagpoles in town and what they're allowed to be used for.
Town-owned flagpoles.
Yep. Yeah, flagpoles on town property. So my understanding, based on the investigation I did, is that the Townsend, we've never used flagpoles for kind of like outside entities. Discussion with town council indicates that, if we got a request tomorrow, we could likely rest on that to say, none of our flagpoles are for free speech purposes. They're all just to put up the American flag. That being said, best practice would be to have a policy written. Adam Costa and his firm have already put together several draft policies that we could just simply adopt. One or more, or one of, once we chose. I think there's a fairly simple one that he and I discussed, which says town flagpoles on town property are only to be used for the American flag, the state flag, and the POWMIA flag, and no other flags. And so if the board is okay, I would like to bring forward one of those policies at next week's meeting for us to just adopt, so it's on the books. So that there's no question if somebody comes in to try to.
And that would be
Make a
run
claim.
through the flag committee too. Or, because there is a flag committee, right?
Yeah, the flag committee doesn't really have anything to do with the policy about flags. It's something that would be adopted by the board of selectmen. It's within the purview of the
For the
board.
street flags.
Yeah.
Right, and on the street flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only question is, like, where are we crossing the line? Like, I know they usually throw in the POW on that one, but then that's the slope.
Well, the POW and MIA flag has been considered to be a government flag and not a free speech, not like a.
Okay, that's what was.
That's
my
why
question.
that has been litigated and brought up in those.
Well, there was language that separated the flag from a banner, and they consider the others a banner as opposed to a flag. But
Yeah.
they're wanting to put it on the flagpole.
Yes.
So I don't want to go down that slope at all.
And so the benefit of these policies is Adam and his firm have worked on these policies specifically in response to this court case. And so they've been vetted and by multiple attorneys, and we've gone through multiple towns. And so I think we could just simply stamp Townsend on the top of one of these policies and adopt it, and then we.
Writing it, I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
So if you're okay, I'll put that on the agenda for next week's meeting.
Okay.
Also for next week's meeting, we met with our consultant and with Ross and with the state about our aggregation plan. Based on some regulatory changes that the DPU adopted, or their proposed changes that they want to adopt. Our consultant has made some minor tweaks to our plan for DPU. Their language tweaks, they don't affect the substance of the plan that we had put forward, but we do need to have another vote to approve the amended plan. We're still on track. We'll put it on for the 5th to have the board just approve the amended DPU plan so they can submit it to DPU with those changes. The third is at the recommendation of Maya, our healthcare provider. We are likely to present a proposal to have a town policy regarding Medicare. I know this sounds a little dry, but we got a request that came in, and just a question, not actually a request, a question about whether or not if an employee who has a spouse who's on their health care, if that spouse leaves town health care and goes into Medicare, can that spouse then bail on Medicare and come back to the town policy? Maya has suggested that we do need to have a policy about what is allowed, and that allowing someone to do that bounce back and forth can create some problems, not for the town, but for the employee. And you can get subject to some fines or penalties if you don't leave Medicare the right way and come back the right way. And so the proposed policy would be that we're not going to allow you to do that. Once you leave to go to Medicare, you're out. You're no longer eligible to come back into the town.
And my understanding is, once you're at Medicare age, you have to get off policy and get on Medicare. You can't have, I mean, just like when I turned 65, I had my corporate insurance for all my employees. They flat out said, you're done. You're not with the policy. You got to be on Medicare, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, it's trickier with the employee healthcare because you can maintain your employee
Right.
healthcare even past.
You have to sign up for Part A, but
Yes,
that's it.
right.
So you have to get on Medicare Part A, but you can get AD, and then you can try to come back, and then it gets
Yeah, it gets very confusing, and they're subject to fines and
C
penalties.
and D.
So if the employee and their spouse are allowed to maintain this health coverage as long as the spouse is eligible and employed, and they're an active employee. Once they become a retired employee, they're no longer, we don't have retiree health care, so they would obviously go to Medicare. But as long as they're employed, they're allowed to stay on it. So this is the recommendation from Maya, that we not allow it. And so I would like to put together a very brief policy. Would be like, for purposes of Medicare, the town's not going to allow people to do what used to be called a carve out, where you can bounce off to Medicare and then bounce back onto the town's plan if you don't like it or for whatever other reason. So we can have a more detailed discussion if the board wants next week, but I'd like to just preview kind of a policy that we're going to say that we're not going to allow staff to do that. And that way, that will just be the answer for everyone, and we can just let people know, and they can make their decisions based on knowing that if they leave, they're not going to be able to come back.
What do you think, Tristan?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So do you want to do it now, or do you want to put it on the next?
I would just rather put a written policy on Tuesday, for next Tuesday, if that's
I'm
okay.
good with that. Okay.
So I wanted to give folks an update on the school budget.
Do we want to go down that road again?
Well, I mean, this is an update that's not asking for a vote or a determination.
Right into
Yeah.
As the board knows, myself and the town administrators of Pepperell and Ashby have a meeting with the administration at the school. We did it last year. We tried this year to start it earlier to come up with a formulation for a budget. There are significant challenges in the budget process from the school level. The first and foremost is that this is a negotiating session for the teachers. The teachers union's contract expires on June 30th. So in all likelihood of July 1, there's going to be a new teachers union agreement. As you all know, because you approved it, I'm the town member of the negotiating team for the teachers collective bargaining agreement. So I can't share obviously those are all confidential conversations. But I can say, if you look at the trends around the state, if you've been paying attention, Andover's teachers went on strike a couple of weeks ago. They ended up settling for, I believe it was 17% over 4 years. So that was the compromise. It was 17% over 4 years. Other unions and other districts have also settled for, significant increases over a 3 or 4 year contract. So that is one thing that's coming into the schools that is likely to increase their budget. In addition, their transportation contract is up. So they have to renegotiate with the bus companies. They have to put out for a bid for a bus company. As anybody who's been a part of this knows, the last few times they put the bus contract out for bid, they get exactly one bidder. For whatever reason, it doesn't feel like it's fair and fair bidding practice, but the bus companies don't try to poach each other's territory. So they get one bid for a bus contract, and so that's your bid. You only get one. So the D bus company was the only bidder. I think the school department said the last 2 times they've gone out to bid. So they don't anticipate a competitive bidding process. And so, that's another reality that the schools are having to deal with for the budget cycle that starts next year. To just provide kind of public information, even if the teachers came in without a raise at all, with no cost of living adjustment, the school's budget would likely go up more than the 2.5% that we're allowed to raise taxes, and that's with no COLA. So I just say this as kind of a preview to the board, that it does look like we're coming into a rough negotiation patch with the schools about the budget. And so it's something to kind of keep in mind. And as information becomes publicly available, I'll absolutely let the board know about those things. And if there's things that we can discuss in open session, we can certainly do it. Going down.
There's only so much money to go around.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
And we have to, yes, make sure education is funded. Absolutely, I agree on that. However, we have to make sure public safety and all other things are taken care of. Town employees are taken care of. So it can't be lopsided, all the money go to school all the time. I've just been sitting here and listening to that for way too long.
I hear exactly what you're saying. I think we've brought this up to Representative Scarsdale and Senator Cronin. Pepperell has brought it up to Senator Kennedy. I think I think we've said it enough times to our state reps that they understand what the fundamental problem is. The question is whether or not and when change can happen at the state level. And until there's a funding change or some sort of reallocation of assets from the state level to better fund the regional schools, we're gonna keep having this discussion.
We will.
We will.
And as long as they're willing to do some of the cuts that we're willing to do, then I'm all for discussing what's going on. But it's gotta be a two-sided conversation. And we have been having a two-sided conversation, and I'm happy because this is the first time that I feel like we're part of the process. So I just want that to continue.
Yeah, so that's just kind of a preview. I know there's no votes to be taken or anything else to discuss, but I just wanted to let folks know that. Let's see, we discussed that. No, that's all I have
No more bad news?
for the non-executive session. Oh, no. We got an executive session coming,
Yeah,
Joe.
that's easy.
That's next.
All right, thank you very much, Eric. 5.2 reports from board liaisons. In general, I put in the SharePoint, the document that I had put in before, back in, I think, April, per Teresa's request. And I thought we could discuss a little bit about it. Did you look at the, okay. I know I wanted to say a couple of things in regards to, I'm tired. I'm very, very tired. And, I've been burning the candle at both ends, plus in my day job, we are growing leaps and bounds, and I'm being asked to do a lot of additional functions that I didn't plan on doing until fiscal year 25, which I'm being asked to do sooner. So I should not knock off the plans that I had for 23 and 24 so quickly, I guess. But I would like to, this is the way we split it before, and if I remember correctly, the shaded area that I put in here on the bottom were the ones, I can't remember why I did that. Do you guys remember that? Were those additional or?
I can't, I gotta pull it up again. I don't remember.
I think you were taking them from there, right, and putting them onto yours?
I can't remember.
I think
can't
that's-
remember.
I think you were helping on the bottom.
But those are still elected positions, right?
Yeah, I think those are elected boards. Yeah, well,
But what I would like to do is to.
Yeah, none of those had to do with my request. It
Right,
was on the bottom, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right. I think those were, this is what I think, and I'm not really sure. When the past board member was here, there were discrepancies on some of the boards, so we kind of split them up. Those were given to other people because of
I think sheer numbers, I think, looks like.
something. There was a reason for we did it. But anyway, there's a couple of those, one of which my spouse is on one of them, which I would like to not be on that particular one, just for the visibility of it, and that would be the Historic District Commission. So I wouldn't want to be able to be on that one. So if somebody would take that one, I'd appreciate it.
I'll take it.
Okay. And the rest of them I'm okay with. So if you guys are okay with this, we can go from there.
Print a new one and just get it, yeah, perfect.
You okay with that, Teresa?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So there is a Historic District Commission meeting tomorrow, and I'd like to attend that, and that would be
Okay.
my final one, just to let them know that I'm passing the torch,
Okay,
okay? And I think that's it. So if you
and I
guys,
did get all the invitations. The finance is the big one, and I know that was taking a lot of your time, and again, I thank you. But I did get meetings already from them.
spreadsheets are not my thing. I can help out with the 20,000 foot level kind of financial stuff, but when you're, yeah, I'm okay with that. So I guess we don't have to vote on that, but, on general government, is there anything that I know that you had capital planning today, Teresa?
Correct.
And I will say that, I had a question from the planning board, in regards to the master plan. There was and I meant to send it over to you. I mean, it was up here and it never got down to the keyboard.
I know that feeling.
They had a matrix that had to do with the question that I had asked you about who actually enforces the master plan. And there's no, as far as I see, there's no enforcement, but according to this matrix, there is.
Some implementation
Right.
suggestions.
Right, and I don't know if it's in the master plan or what. But I said that I would bring it, to the board to talk about in regards to the liaison role. The master plan committee falls under, the non-elected for the government, and the land use
Planning board stuff. And
planning board
zoning
falls
board,
falls under me, so I don't know how we want to.
Well, I think, I mean, if the board's okay, I think what might make sense is for us to, if you have a copy of the matrix, we can look at that and I can bring it up at a department head meeting to talk about to the departments and then send it out to the boards and committees just to say, hey, this is how the implementation of the master plan was envisioned.
Right. I don't know if it was part of a charter or what, I don't know where.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that implementing the master plan would be part of a charter.
Yeah.
Most master plan implementations are kind of amorphous.
Yes.
And so I would have to, if I could read it, I could get a better idea as to how the implementation was envisioned. Usually in towns, it's overseen by the planning board. But that's usually through them saying, hey, we want to update on what's happened to the master plan implementation.
Yeah.
And then
my
they
thought
ask
is
and we ask everybody and
if part of the approval of the master plan, everybody gets a copy of it and it gets approved, so every department gets to see it that's involved in the master plan, so.
Right.
But I did say, you and I had a private conversation about it, and I just wanted to throw it out to the board. And then Teresa, since you have the master plan committee on your end too, that I will have a conversation with Beth to forward that matrix over to you.
And I'll have a department head meeting and mention
And
it.
so last year, when I held that position last year, and I tried to join and figure out what they were doing, there was some discussion how master plan interacts with the planning board. And it was the planning board's belief that they were spearheading it. Is that a better word to use?
Well, it's a
Yeah.
subcommittee of the planning board. The planning board appoints that master plan committee. The master plan committee, as the charter outlines it, a subcommittee of the planning board.
Right.
So the planning board is the ones that the master plan does what they need to do and bring it to the planning board, and the planning board is the one that approves it.
But on that document, I wasn't, or maybe did it change? Who's the liaison for the planning board?
That's Chaz.
That's me.
Right.
But the
And
master
they
elected.
felt it was not appropriate that they were switched. That's all I'm telling you.
What do you mean appropriate?
They were like, well, it should be the same liaison.
Oh, they had a problem with a different liaison for the master planning committee than for the planning board. I mean,
Well, no, if you stop and think about it, as a committee, these are boards and committees now. As a committee, they're appointed by the master plan, they're appointed by the planning board. The planning board members are elected members, but the master plan committee are appointed. So it's two different.
yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I'm not sure that it's a huge role for a liaison to
They
do.
just
I
didn't
don't,
understand what I was doing there because they felt you should be there because you were the liaison. And I was,
Who was they?
the people from the planning board
Yes.
asking me why I was attending a master plan or why I was even asking about the master plan.
I mean, I think that's it. I think it's a relatively easy explanation. Like Chad says, you guys are all appointed now. You were elected on the planning board, but once you're on the master planning committee, you're appointed and you're under my purview.
Okay.
But I think the reason why they were saying that is that the master plan committee there's nothing happening with the master plan committee right now.
Gotcha.
There isn't anything there.
Because the
So it's just
master plan's
planning
done.
board, Right.
So
And I was asking members of the planning board about the master plan as a liaison, but kind of was like on a hairy line there.
yeah, I mean, I think at this point in time, the plan exists. The implementation of that plan is going to be up to, either full-time professional staff
Mhm.
or boards like the planning board that can make policy changes in the zoning code or things like that. Like those are the Conservation Commission that can make changes to their regulations.
Right.
I mean, those are the people who have to do the implementing. But I don't think there's ever going to be a person who's
There's
in
no
charge.
enforcement individual.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's ever going to be I don't think we have a staff person who we can say, you're in charge of implementing the master plan, because all of our staff people already have other jobs that don't include.
The other
Not
question, we do have a new board, the policy subcommittee, whatever.
The bylaw
Bylaw
review
sub-
committee?
Bylaw review committee. They're not on there. I didn't see it on.
Well, that would be an appointed board. Aren't those appointed?
They're appointed.
We appointed, so that would be under you.
That would be, okay, so that just needs to be added to the documentation.
General government.
I don't think it was ever there because it's only once every 5 years.
No, they've been meeting.
No, we only create a bylaw committee once every 5 years.
Okay, yeah, but they've been meeting. and-
Oh, yeah, they've definitely been meeting, but yeah,
And
it's
I told them, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be your liaison.
on years that end in a 3 and an 8. So bizarre.
But, I said,
the sun
I-
is pointed.
I'm not officially a liaison yet, so I have to wait till we have it official.
So I guess there was, a couple of meetings that I had gone to with the Historic District Commission. I've worked with, the Water Department. Nothing really to report. I do want to say that the Water Department really is doing a great job with the new treatment plant. Boy, oh boy, are they making strides with that thing.
Yeah,
They
It's
got
almost a real building.
yeah. Just seeing the tank going in, that was all like, ooh. I was happy to see South Row Road getting the binder on it, to get rid of the dirt. I think that was a milestone. As far as, cemetery and parks, we did lose a commissioner on cemetery and parks. It was, Joe and I had gone to his service, and you were, and Teresa too. I'm sorry, Teresa, I should have included you. It was nice to kind of see everybody there kind of supporting him, and his family. It was nice to meet some of his family. They were very nice. But outside of that, that's all I have. Teresa, did you have anything from
no, just like I said, the new committee,
the?
then I guess in 5 years from now, that will go up.
Yeah, there was something I wanted to talk. I'll tell Eric and he can tell you, for the energy committee. There's some new lights in the business that was put in very recently that are very bright.
I've been attending that, I didn't give up that one, so you haven't attended, have you? Kennedy?
No, I think Chaz just saw something he wants to bring to
Oh,
you.
okay, yeah. I've been attending, I go to Eric every day at something I see.
Well, that's probably not the energy committee. That's probably the building commissioner. Because he's the one that enforces the
A
bylaw.
little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So anyway.
You let me know and I'll
Oh,
forward.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
But no, I've been attending.
Public safety. No one is on my Christmas lights, Joe, okay?
We got a landing strip going on, you know? Yeah. Public safety, I think, I was gonna talk about what the chief said today. We talked about the justice grant, which he was very happy. He didn't think he'd be in front of us, but wanted at least get it there, but Eric made that happen. So his department's been running very well. I thank him for, all the professionalism that's over there. fire department, I deal with Mr. Shepherd, a lot. I know I sat in a phone conversation that he just had with the, new fire truck company, and, he's just going to bat to try to argue with them, because they want to try to do an increase, and he's pretty adamant that, we signed into a contract, and they're trying to cry, all these problems, but I felt Mr. Shepherd had the best interest of the town and put them to the task, and we're just waiting to hear what they have to say. But other than that, there's nothing else that, I have going.
I do want to add to that, it kind of came up in capital planning, and I need something, we need to think about it. So they got that new ambulance truck that they're very happy with. However, it needs to be equipped correctly to bring, and especially if you really want to bring our town up to the services that we should have, public safety, to what it should be. We're talking $100,000 worth of equipment that really needs to be in the truck and serviced
In
around.
the new ambulance?
Yeah.
The new rescue truck, not ambulance.
Rescue, and, some of the things, the purchase of them, such as one of the items that we really should have in the town, considering, an idea of some of the equipment, is the equipment you use, cold water, rescues and stuff like that. That's old, needs to be updated. We don't have a boat. That should be in there. There's a place for it there. It's a package that goes in there that just needs to be in there. So it'd be a really good idea to have this. It's wonderful that they have this, but it doesn't have all the items that it needs to have in there. So we talked about bringing it up at capital planning, which of course it made sense. So we had our meeting right before this meeting in capital planning. But a lot of these items are like months and months and months to get the item. So if we wait to capital planning, then we get views and whatever, we could be talking like, a long time that we're out before we get it.
What's the total they're looking for? 100,000
Well,
for all of the equipment?
$100,000 total is what they brought to capital planning, but I think like if we could get some funding to get the stuff that has to be ordered, like that's gonna be a 6 to 9 months out order, if we could get that either through opera funds or from some other way, instead of through capital planning, I'd like to look at that as a possibility.
So we would need to talk with, I forget her name, Jennifer?
Right.
From Capital Strategies,
Yeah, we need to look and see.
if it's approved first, if it's an
Right.
approved expense for.
Well, there's no question that we can get it approved, because we're under the limit where we could just say anything's just revenue replacement and that can be used for any purpose. So we could definitely approve it. I just don't know that we'd have to check to see if there's a location from which we could take the money.
Right.
So Gary hadn't brought this up to me, so I can try to nail down the specifics with Gary about what the items that he's thinking about would need to be ordered now to be able to get them sooner, and figure out what the amount is, and then check on ARPA.
Well, and Gary, he's had a little bit of a conversation with me about that. And I've had conversation with him also that, when that truck was purchased, it was purchased to eliminate the ladder truck running around is gonna be for a rescue. He did mention that, it'd be nice to equip this truck and to have state of the art. But we gotta understand that there's only so much money that we as a community, we can't, jump into this whole thing. I think it should be done, but I don't know where we're gonna get that money.
That's my,
I mean,
I just,
to-
yeah, I know.
to-
I mean, but
take-
it's not gonna stop us to look.
Right,
See
you're
what
right.
we can do.
So
And
look,
yeah,
yeah, I know, but it's important that, I understand we gotta have that truck equipped and he wants to do it right, and I support that, but we gotta make sure the funding is right, we can't just keep funding the fire department or police department or
No,
water.
the process though, Joe, is it's to find, first of all, there's a need there.
Yeah.
And it's our job to look at where A, the funding, if it's ARPA, B, if it's capital planning, we just need to find out where it fits in.
Or even if it's, like if there isn't, we don't find out. Let's make it simple, right? let's say we all agree that this town, for the safety of the town, needs a boat. Right? A simple blow it up and it floats off and you can have it in an instant, right? Now, do we take it out of ambulance receipts? Because we want to get it now and it's gonna be 9 months to back order
Yeah.
it, right? Or, and then it's instant, he can write his own check. Or can we look and see if there's ARPA money and then come back in a couple of weeks and say, okay, there is ARPA money, we steal from Mary, give to Paul, and so on. Or do
Like we
we,
usually do.
like we usually,
Well, I think
or
we
do
need-
we have to say, you know, we
What
get
we
to
need-
need, but we'll put it and we'll have to spread it out over 5 years and this is what it is.
What I think we need in front of the board is a full list of what he's looking for.
Yeah.
That would be the first thing, which he's never come to me and said that that's what he's looking, but, and I know that.
He has the list, so we can get that, that's not a problem.
Well, I can certainly reach out to Gary and try to nail down what they're looking for and what the amounts are and look at ARPA. I mean, we wouldn't be able to take ambulance receipts because we'd have to have a special town meeting to appropriate it. So that's not gonna happen for the spring anyway. So that,
Not another town meeting. I'm-
we've had two and that's
Yeah.
two enough. Yeah, so that we couldn't take it from ambulance receipts, that's the same speed as the capital plan.
Oh, okay,
Basically.
okay.
So if it's not already a line item that we could take it from in the existing budget, we would be relying on capital plan or money that would come in the spring. Or ARPA money. So
Well, if you could follow up with Upper and follow up with him, get that.
I can get that information and at least check.
Thank you.
5.3 announcements and communications.
Yeah, I had two, both from the Historical Commission, we got the tree lighting this Sunday,
Mhm.
and we also have
4:30.
Victoria Christmas at the Reed House. Christmas carols and whatever a Victorian Christmas is. But I know it includes Christmas carols.
This is not Victoria's Secret.
Victorian.
Street urchins.
Oh,
Lots of,
Victoria.
Victorian.
Did
lots
I
of
say
street
Victoria?
urchins.
You know, I do have aphasia, so.
All right, so, anything else? I didn't print it out, the rec, can you help me out with this? They're doing their ski thing, correct? That's starting up, their, winter kids ski thing. They haven't had a price on it yet. Emmy, I'm sorry I didn't print it up so I don't have the details on it, but I promise I'll put that in. But they are starting to do that. Look on the Rec's website and they have the details there. They have all of the signups and all of that kind of stuff, but they don't have pricing on it yet because they're still putting that together. And I think that's all I have. Any announcements from you, John? Next meeting is Tuesday, December 5th at 6 o'clock. And I'll entertain a motion to review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants out of session.
So moved.
Hang on. Eric, I sent you an email that I got from the Squanicook Greenway. I don't know if that's something you need to get on.
Oh, sure. No, yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it. Squanicook River Greenways is, as you know, they're the entity that is putting together the rail trail. They got successfully funded through the last Mass Trails grant round for the section that goes from the Groton Town line behind the Hannafords to meet up with the existing trail. And so now they're looking the other direction. And so they are going to be looking for approval from the Board of Selectmen for their application to is it the MBTA? I believe it's the MBTA to get the line that starts, where am I? Yeah, the line
Want
that
me to
starts
read
out
the
here.
letter?
Sure, there you go.
So this letter was sent to me to get forwarded to the board. It says, with the last section of the presently planned Squanicook River Rail Trail starting construction, we have been thinking about the future in Groton. We have a CPA application in to permit further south from Bertozzi along Townsend Road to Cutler Field on that end. I don't know if Eric Slagle has already mentioned to you, but for Townsend, we decided to take on the next 0.4 miles west to Worcester Road. So from where it stops here to Worcester Road. It says, this section, though short, contains two big challenges, crossing Route 13 and refurbishing the trestle. Our plan is to submit a Mass Trails grant this year to do the engineering and permitting of this 0.4 mile section. We could use support from the select board in two ways. First, we could use a letter of support for the Mass Trails application, which is due February 1st, 2023. In the longer term, should we win this grant, we could use the board support in dealing with Mass Highway to get a safe crossing installed on 13. I understand that fewer meetings are held around Christmas, and I am traveling December 18th through the 28th to visit the grandkids. But if you could put us on the select board's agenda anytime in December or earlier, January, I'd appreciate it.
So that was my plan, was to put it on the 5th, but it's
That's
good to bring
exactly
it
mine
up.
too, because I did get a copy of that as well. I was gonna put that on the 5th.
Yeah, so we can have Bill come in and he can
So
explain
you'll
it.
reach out to him and,
I'll let him know that we're gonna put it on the 5th,
Perfect.
absolutely.
sorry about that, Bill.
No, I apologize. Thank you for reminding me.
No, I planned on our next.
Just throwing
meeting,
it on there.
throwing it on the agenda.
All right.
Is that it?
You have to take the motion to review and sign payroll.
Yep, there's a motion, it's been seconded. No, it's been made.
It's been made,
Just
but-
waiting for a second, there's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to general law, chapter 30A, section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and I do declare,
And to adjourn from.
and to adjourn in executive session.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.